Our coffee breaks with researchers aim to spread knowledge about regional development and innovation. By sending a camera around the world, we present you with different angles and insights on the topic. We ask researchers directly and in a personal manner about their work. We want to make scientific knowledge accessible to all. Hi, welcome to Coffee Break with Researchers. Today, we're in Florence at the Regional Innovation Policies Conference, and I'm having a coffee break with Jiří Blažek. He's an associate professor at Charles University in Prague. Thank you, Jiří, for joining me at this coffee break in a conference. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thanks a lot for this kind invitation. Thanks a lot.
Very happy to have you here. I want to talk with you about a recent paper you wrote in which you analyze the relationships among knowledge bases, R&D structure, and innovation performance of European regions. Could you please tell me what the paper was about?
Actually, the name of the paper is quite complicated, but in fact, in reality, the idea was quite straightforward. I simply tried to look what is the relationship between the basic two subsystems of innovation systems in the regions, which mean knowledge generation subsystem, basically public research, and knowledge exploitation subsystem, basically private research. And I was actually puzzled how this is related to the concept of knowledge bases.
Okay, thank you for that. So I see that one of the key notions of your paper is this notion of differentiated knowledge bases. Could you please tell me what this is about?
Actually, the concept of knowledge bases was introduced by Björn Asheim and Mary Gertler. And the basic idea is that the nature of innovation process differs substantially in different spheres. For example, in natural science, the innovation process is very much different from technology or from innovations in the sphere of art and design and so on. So this was behind this concept of differentiated knowledge bases. So actually these authors distinguish between synthetic knowledge base, which is mostly technology, analytical, which is mostly natural science, and symbolic knowledge base, which is design, architecture, and so on.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And based on this notion, which one would you say is your main finding?
Actually, basically what was surprising for me, which I was not very much sure about before doing this research, was that actually there is a big dominance in all regions in Europe of synthetic knowledge base. And the basic difference between the well-developed or most developed regional innovation system and less developed regional innovation systems is that in most developed innovation systems there is also very strong role of analytical and symbolic knowledge base in addition to synthetic, while in less developed regions the role of analytical and symbolic knowledge base is relatively weaker. And this is not only related to the economic structure of the regions, but also to the ambitions the companies are having. Because if the companies are competing on the state of the art, on the technology frontier, then they need to understand also the, let's say, physical nature of the phenomena which they are practically using in their technology, in their production. So actually it's not only economic structure, but also kind of ambitions or whether the companies are competing on high road based or trying to move the technology frontier, or just basically they are followers and they are oriented on relatively standard production of traditional goods and so on.
Okay, but I also see that there was another important finding related to the internal structure of R&D in European regions, right? Could you please elaborate on that?
Yes, actually we classified the NUTS2 regions. There are about 275 NUTS2 regions in Europe for which we gained the data. And we classify them in line with the Regional Innovation Scoreboard. And this Regional Innovation Scoreboard distinguishes the regions in 4 categories according to innovation performance, as innovation leaders, strong innovators, moderate innovators, and modest innovators. And there was a very neat structure. Basically, the innovation leaders and strong innovators had either balanced size of both these subsystems, public and private, or even dominance of the private R&D, private research and development. And the opposite was true for less developed regions, modest or moderate innovators, where was typical dominance of public research.
That's very interesting, thank you. And what about your personal motivation in writing this paper?
Actually, I was always puzzled when reading the literature on regional innovation system that there is very little information about the variation in size of these two basic subsystems of regional innovation system, because I saw no obvious mechanism which might guarantee some kind of balanced development between the two. So I somehow expected that there should be a big variation, not only in absolute but also in a relative size of these two subsystems. So therefore I look at the empirical data.
That's very nice. And which ones would you say are the main policy implications of the research?
Basically, in the implications in terms of regional development, in my view, are the following. Basically, the differences in economic structure and R&D structure among the regions are of such a scale that I would say that it indicates that different regions are integrated into global economy in very different modes. And the differences are of such a scale that actually these differences imply a long-term implications for evolutionary trajectories for the future. And in terms of practical policy implications, I would say that my research, or our research, because it was done with my PhD student, is that actually we are fully supporting what Professor Kevin Morgan said already 20 years ago, that one-sided stress on science, technology, innovation paradigm is actually outdated in a way, or it's unrealistic, and one-sided support of public R&D in lagging regions might be actually misleading, because it is the innovation demand of companies which actually is the decisive driver of competitiveness.
That's indeed very interesting and truly fascinating for your research. So thank you very much again for having this nice chat with me, and it was a pleasure to have you here in a coffee break, and I hope to see you next time.
Thanks a lot indeed. Thanks for having me here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching. If you are interested in more details about this academic publication, find here the link below. And see you next time. Bye-bye.